forces. With its vast arable land, water and oil resources, and a population less than 10 million, the world's newest nation of South Sudan was poised for robust growth and full of promise for its young generation, many of whom were scarred for decades by a brutal war with its neighbor to the north. But this promise would soon go up in smoke before the nation's third anniversary of independence, betrayed by intense power struggle between tribal forces loyal to the president and his former deputy, Riek Machar.
That political tension broke out into the military, and it broke out very fast. What was going on within the military, we didn't know, but I could tell from the political tension. I've been here so long, I felt something might happen, because when we want to resolve issues in South Sudan, we usually end up talking afterwards and shooting first, and that's the bottom line here. Towns completely destroyed, Malakal, Bentu, Bor, completely destroyed. And brutal killing. It was going like Rwandan genocide, really.
When we first arrived in Juba, South Sudan's capital seemed at ease with itself, showing no sign of trouble even as war raged in the northern cities of Malakal and Bentu. But we would soon experience the signs of underlying war currents in Juba as security forces paid us a visit at our hotel.
Apparently today the mob and police are looking for any kind of weapon, guns, you name it. There is tension in this country. How are you, sir?
We are checking
House to house.
house to house.
Yeah.
You're more than welcome.
We're looking for all these things. We are
Please, feel free. Feel free to come in.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So can you open your bag?
Yes, sure.
The rubber receipt.
Okay.
This one is what?
Toilet.
Since the war, deep mistrust breeds amongst the forces,
Okay, thank you.
perhaps explaining why our rooms had to be searched a second time by members of the same team.
Yes, they check colors. Yes.
Check again.
But you can check again if you want. Yes. Alaikum salam.
We're still a very closed society and very suspicious society. You know, people don't understand sometimes the difficulties here. Like 75% of our police force are illiterate. You can imagine a policeman being illiterate because he doesn't know the laws, he doesn't know this. And I used to say to my sons, you know, you're in a place here that's completely messed up because of history. When you in Kenya got independence in 1963, you had a civil service, you had a qualified civil service. Uganda the same thing by the British. Not alone did we not have a civil service here, we had a negative civil service. We had a civil service that was trained to undo and to undermine the liberation of the South and the freedom of the South.
According to Dan If, a former priest who had worked in southern Sudan for 25 years and now considered it home, South Sudan was not only plagued by illiteracy or lack of a viable civil service.
Come to this tribal society, which is probably the most indigenous society in Africa, if not the world. Very indigenized, local, tribally, where your obedience or loyalty is to your own tribal chief, your own tribal grouping. That is here still. And because we're a highly tribalized society, politicians can take advantage of that and mobilize around the tribe. And it's always in Africa politicians have done this.
So we'll meet him later. Also, we ride the waves with the silver surfers of Brazil.
A week later, we left Juba through several security checkpoints and drove down the 125-mile rugged road to Bor, the capital city of Jonglei State to the north.
That's our boat ride. Welcome.
Come young sit in.
Come sir, sit in. Okay, come.
Again, come down sit.
Huh?
Come down sit.
And what is this comes in?
Huh?
Comes in.
Come sit.
Alright.
Now we've been on the road for the last 3 good hours. We are yet to get to Bor. It's such a bumpy ride, as you have seen. I don't know how much longer we'll stay on the road, but at least Joseph has been kind enough to buy dinner and lunch. And let's see how that goes. Yeah, good? Tamam? Tamam. Hi. Moses, here comes lunch and dinner.
Yeah, I can see it.
We would be on the road for several hours. On our approach to Bor, we were greeted by gut-wrenching stench of death, stinking up the road for several miles, testament to the vicious killings that had occurred. In Bor, an area predominantly inhabited by the Dinka tribe, the extent of ethnic atrocities was evident. Businesses were selectively razed to the ground as marauding Nuer youth, known here as the White Army, butchered civilians. The UN mission in Bor rescued thousands of civilians as the orgy of killings continued. At St. Andrew's Church in Bor, at least 24 civilians were attacked and killed within the refuge of church. At the gate, a notice for school children not to return just yet. But a wary church official makes his way back into the deserted compound, scene of horrific killings.
Here is a compound. My name is Reverend Abraham Luan. I'm a person in the Cathedral Diocese of Bor. Here is my arrival time from Juba.
Is this the first time you're coming back ever since the violence?
It is the 3rd time.
Where is the mass grave?
This is the mass grave. You can see the other graves, 2 graves, they were for 2 pastors who were killed in different instances between Juba and Bor roads. These were 2 pastors from this church were coming back after the government have taken town again. This grave belonged to a pastor called Reverend Peter Yugai. This one is called Reverend Isaiah Ayunakau. These mass graves, there are 20 bodies, 18 women. Among these 18 women, 5 of them, they are pastors. And the 2, they are men. So in this mass grave, there are 20 bodies. Plus these 2 bodies, plus the other 2 bodies are buried by the relative who were identified. And you know these bodies were just buried after 4 weeks. They were rotten, they cannot be identified. If you come to that hall where I got you, by that time, you cannot stand there. It was very filthy, very horrible, very shocking.
Did you walk in and find some of the bodies?
Yes, some of the women. I say those who were all killed inside, they were all women. Sexual abuse, some were raped. And even those who were look young, they were brought out from the hall, outside around, if you can go, you can see around. They were taken in place and around the church trying to abuse, and even some of the stick were put, after they have abused them, they killed them, they put some stick in their private parts. And even the Archbishop of Canterbury came, and they were not buried, and he prayed on them before they were buried here.
Ene, waka to wer yaw, agore, bugu jallo, awan miadur, wa jal ka geri riay wa ga toj. Yen a jol bae jol naf, ayutik, ka teken yen ku ho tartim. Ke chirkana, a che ka piat. ku yen Riek 91 arajaret araj ton jo ko to serious yeah.
By late April, government forces had retaken the town of Bor, but residents feared reprisal attacks. Bit by bit, they salvaged what was left as boats upon boats left Bor for the shores of Main Command.
How was that?
Very nice. Very nice.
So we've arrived at a place where we possibly can have accommodation. It's been one long journey. I can tell you right now, it's just about 5 o'clock. We left home at 10 a.m. So that's a journey for you, my people. This is a godsend, man. First meal of the day.
We found refuge at this hotel that was barely open for business and prayed we would survive the night. At this workplace, this place where we are staying, they lost 2 colleagues, a driver and a waiter, purely for being from either the wrong country or the wrong tribe. Difficult stories indeed to listen to. I can tell you that it's one of those things you hear and really you know you cannot quite have a restful night. Despite our obvious security concerns, we made it through the night safely and found our way to Main Command in the morning. The unfolding humanitarian crisis was soon evident. In the marshes, deep in the Nile, we found 10-year-old schoolgirl Alec Guy taking refuge among strangers, having lost contact with her parents while escaping from Bor.
We are finally in Main Command, or Awarial if you may call it, disembarking at a point where a lot of South Sudanese who are running away from the strife came to for refuge.
In Main Command, authorities had received over 170,000 civilians, nearly twice its existing population. The UN in South Sudan estimated at least 800,000 were displaced in the initial fighting, and at least 1 million would soon be faced with famine as well as disease outbreak once the rains set in.
It's painful. It's sad, you know. Look at what is happening. Look at how people are here in Main Command. Families are under trees. Every night when the clouds form and it's about to rain, we're like, God, please don't let it rain. What are these guys going to do under the trees? It's really painful.
We returned to Juba to find a peace effort presided over by the Vice President Wani Iga.
We must silence the guns by all means. So meaning an agreement between the warring parties is number one.
But even as the government struck a reconciliatory tone, its fingers were pointed in one direction.
The whole issue of the crisis, of the attempted coup, were being planned by my brother, Dr. Riek Machar, for a very long time, actually over 1 year.
In this heavily militarized nation, gunpower means the strong have tended to have their way. With its military juggernaut, the SPLM as the only way to political office, and without a viable civil service, South Sudan has been unable to fend off corruption reported to have beset the new nation.
Oil here is important only insofar as it brings in about $800 million a month. It's the money that's important here. And that's what people squabble over. When you're a minister, you have access to money. You have access to budgets. And that creates that great greed. Now when the resources are there, people can make transfers to their accounts abroad. Many of our people here, the leaders have houses in Australia, houses in Canada, houses in America, houses in Kenya.
It's so unfortunate our leaders don't look at the importance of why they should have citizens that they are leaders for. It's unfortunate. It's the greed that people put ahead of themselves than ensuring the betterness of the common citizens of South Sudan.
To date, fighting between government forces and rebels loyal to Riek Machar continue as peace remains elusive in Africa's newest country. It's estimated that the war has reversed development in South Sudan by at least 10 years.
I'm appealing to the government of South Sudan and to the Riek Machar group to come together as brothers and let them understand that their people are dying without cause.
You know, we have a saying in English, every cloud has a silver lining. I know it's a terrible thing to say because tens of thousands have been killed and people are being displaced, people are suffering. But hopefully God will bring good out of this, that we will learn the lesson, never to go there again, never to go into that kind of situation again, either politically or physically, and leave that behind.